Hey there, brilliant people. So today's question is about the signs of starting again. Like, how do I know that it's time to start again? So this is one of those other questions that is really timely right now, because often when we're going through the kind of times that we're going through right now, the economy's difficult, for a lot of people it's really difficult. There's a lot of chaos in the world, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. These are signs that the world at large, and by the world I mean, of course, our human society, those things are signs that our whole society is maybe coming to the end of one cycle and is looking to start a new one. But of course, that can affect us individually as well. So when these things are happening, so I'm going to go through 7 signs that it's time for you to start again. And you don't necessarily have to have all of these 7 signs, obviously, and it's up to you. I mean, whether or not you truly do sort of step out there into something new. These signs are just the signs that your intuition is telling you that maybe the stage of life you've been in, or the cycle of life you've been in, is coming to a close, or maybe has already closed. And it's time for you to start to think about the next cycle, about what you're going to spend the next however many years the next cycle is, what you're going to be using that cycle for. Right, so let's get into it. So the first sign is you're bored. So why is that a sign that you've come to an end? Well, generally when we go through a cycle, there's this, when we first start a cycle, it's very exciting. It can be very alarming and unnerving because we don't know what's happening, but it's kind of exciting. We're going out there, there's new things, we're learning a lot, there's all this stimulating things, new stuff is happening, but little bit by little bit, we figure it out, we learn it, we get better at it, we manage to figure out how to have a better management of all of that kind of stuff. And so life starts to get calmer again, and then it just becomes very easy and pleasurable. But then after a while, it becomes so familiar, it becomes boring. So it's boring because in many ways, boredom is kind of like a low level of serenity. Like when we're feeling very serene, nothing much is happening, but we're really kind of loving it. When we're bored, nothing much is happening, but we really want something to happen. So yeah, I mean, it might be then an opportunity for you to practice, do more meditating, just sit in the boredom, sit in the not much happening with the intention to turn it into serenity. You could do that by appreciating the peace and quiet of the boredom. Always a good thing to do. But essentially the boredom itself is telling you that, whatever the old cycle was, you've kind of got all the juice out of it, insofar as whatever personal growth, whatever personal learning the old cycle gave you, you've mastered it. So the old cycle isn't going to give you much more learning, and as a consequence, it might be time for you to start a new cycle, and so you can open yourself up to new learnings. So that's the first sign. The second sign is a little bit like boredom, but not really, because it's actually when you're restless. So when we're bored, that's kind of like almost like the last little bit of the old cycle is often when we're bored. It's kind of like, I often use the analogy of like if you're doing a big jigsaw puzzle. And to begin with, it's kind of a bit stressful because you can't find much, but then you start to find the edge pieces, and then the pieces that are particular colors, and you start to fill in bits and pieces that give you some stability, some sense of how you're organizing things, and so more and more things start to then fall into place. So the boredom is like when those last few pieces, it's like it's all done. You just have to do it, because you know at that point that, right, well, there's nothing much more to discover. You've just got to do what you need to do to put those last pieces into place. So that's the boredom, is the last stage of the last cycle. Whereas restlessness is often the beginning of the next cycle. So when we're restless, it can sometimes appear like being distracted, or it can even feel like difficulty in your body, like you're not wanting to sit still. When we're restless, it's because as I said, we're at the beginning of the next cycle. So at that point, rather than sitting in the boredom and learning to be serene, we want to actually really start to think about, well, what do I want my next cycle to be? What is my next learning? What's my next adventure? What's my next goal? Because we're restless because we're wanting to go, but we're not really sure which direction to go in. So even though we want to go, we can't really get started, because we can't really get started until we have at least some idea of which direction we want to go in. So the second sign can be when you're feeling very restless, but that's a different signal. It's not about enjoying the peace and quiet of the ending of the last cycle. It's about starting to get clear on what you want this new cycle to be. So that's the second sign your intuition is telling you might be time for you to start a new cycle or to start again. So the third is not so much more of an emotional sign. The third sign is more mental. So I suppose it is almost like a form of mental boredom, but it's when you're starting to ask yourself, is this it? Is this all there is? And it may not necessarily be that there's anything wrong. In fact, it's good if there's nothing wrong with where you're at. But if you're asking yourself, well, is this it? Is this all my life is ever going to be? Well, it's actually some deeper part of you is saying there is actually more for you out there. Doesn't mean you have to abandon everything. I mean, if all that is not serving you, sure, leave it behind. But if it is serving you, then you want to use that as a foundation. But with that as a foundation, you can grow into something more. Doesn't have to be something necessarily different. It can just be something more than the more expanded version of what you have. But when you're asking yourself, is this it? What you want to do is you want to say to yourself, there's more of me out there. Because when we're saying, is this it? We're actually saying, is this as much of me as I get to be in this lifetime? So of course we want to say, well, if I was more me, if my life was more suited, if I could have a bigger dream, what would that look like? And then start to work on how you can build out from where you are to that next cycle. So that's the thing, the third sign, asking yourself, is this it? The fourth is now, instead of just looking at what you already have, part of you is starting to look to the new. So it's, I mean, in some ways you could call the fourth sign a kind of a productive distraction. Because what it is that you're being drawn to new things. You're starting to find that intuitively the universe is starting to show you new things. And it's not that possibly, it's not that they haven't been there before, it's just you've never really paid them attention before. Of course, with that, as with all of these signs, you want to actually check in with your soul seed. You want to make sure that these new things, because these new things are just possibilities. But the fact that you're being drawn to new things says that some part of you is looking for something new. But your job with your intuition is to check in with your intuition, check in with your soul seed, make sure whatever this new thing is, that it's actually going to help you be more of who you really are. So it's going to connect you more to who you really are. It's not going to take you away from who you really are just for the sake of something new. So when we're drawn to new things, yeah, that's we're being given opportunities or possibilities of what this new cycle might be about. And it's our job to go yes, no, as to whether or not those things actually might serve us, or maybe just a part of it might serve us. So as we're being drawn to those new things, we want to be asking ourselves, would it serve me? Do I want this to be a part of my new cycle? So that's the fourth sign, is being drawn to new things. So the fifth one sort of follows on from the fourth one. So the fourth one is about being drawn to new things, but the fifth one is actually finding new sources of joy. So again, this could be because some of these new things do spark joy for you, and so those things you definitely want to follow up on. But it could be that you're starting to find new joy in things that you've always done. So whether it's like you've always done writing, but now you're writing in a different way and it's much more joyful. Or, it could be something just every day, like you've cooked dinner every day, but now you're actually starting to find more joy in it. Maybe you're starting to play with it a bit more, develop your own recipes, or find recipes on YouTube that you've never tried before, or whatever it is. So when you're finding those new things that are joyful, what you want to do then is start to really acknowledge it, appreciate it, but do your best to not treat them as like, oh, well, that was cool, but look at them and go, okay, so these new joys, do I want to incorporate them? Like, is there a way that I can do more and more of these things as I move into this next cycle, as I start again? So finding new sources of joy, that's the fifth thing. And so the sixth thing is you're experimenting. Now, by experimenting, I mean like you're actively looking for new things. You're not just waiting for the universe to deliver them to you, but you're doing new things. Now, when I say experimenting, it could be really simple, like, I don't know, you're letting yourself, or you're experimenting with new types of cooking. Obviously, it's maybe I'm a bit hungry. I keep talking about food. So yes, you're experimenting with new types of cooking, or you're experimenting with the way that you're dressing, or you're experimenting. It can be as simple as if you're going somewhere that you often go, your parents, or to work or something, you're going a different way. So it can be as simple as that. You're actually experimenting with new things. So it can just be by giving yourself a slightly different experience, going a different way. But it can also be about consciously choosing or looking for things, like trying archery if you've never done archery. It's fun. Trying rock climbing if you've never done that before. Perhaps not for those who are scared of heights. I don't know, trying crochet. Not my thing, but lots of people enjoy it. Trying different things that you've never done before, just to see if that might actually have something in it, some of your particular juice that gives you joy. So in other words, you're actively looking to collect all the different pieces of your puzzle that can go together to create this new cycle when you're starting again. And then the seventh sign that you're starting again is actually that you're making new friends. Now, a lot of this making new friends can come from, obviously, when you are experimenting with these new activities. I don't know, you when you go bushwalking, you can meet someone, or if you're doing bush care groups, you make friends through that, or if you take up a new sport, you make new friends, or any kind of new activity. Whether you make those friends online initially, or you make them by going to the activity, because with these new experiments that you're having in your life, you're connecting to a network of people that perhaps you've never connected to before. And particularly what is important about this is because you're experimenting and you're looking for those things that give you joy, the important thing is that when you're making these new friends, they're going to be people who also get some joy out of the things that are giving you joy. And so having relationships that are founded on this mutual joy, that's a very different thing. It's a very different thing than having found, relationships that are founded on, well, basically familiarity, that you were just thrown together with these people because of work or family or school or something. And so you sort of fell into friendship out of just familiarity. But when we're starting again, when our intuition is saying to us it's time to start again, or time to start a new cycle, it gives us the opportunity to start relationships that is founded on mutual joy. And that's a wonderful thing. So there you are. There are the 7 signs that your intuition is telling you that it's time to start again. So before I wrap up this video, I just want to make sure, in case I haven't been clear, that starting again does not necessarily mean you have to burn your old life down and start again. You don't have to leave everything behind. I mean, sometimes, of course, we do need to do that if a lot of our old life was not serving us. But really what we want to learn to do is we want to learn to take with us into the new cycle the things that were serving us from the old cycle. Like, with work, if there were elements of your work you enjoyed, other elements that you didn't, you want to, your next job, because that could be what your new cycle's about, it has more of the elements that you enjoyed, less of the ones that you don't enjoy. It can be as simple as that. So the new cycle can be it can be an expansion of what you already have, or it can be completely different. That's up to you. But I hope that those signs that your intuition is telling you it's time to start again is helpful for you. And if you are in one of those points in your life where it's time to start a new cycle, blessings on your new cycle. And as always, remember that you're brilliant.